Hello, I'll be going over the answers to the latest questions. So in question 1 we have economic growth refers to. So the best answer here would just be a rightward shift of a production possibilities curve, since um, demand and supply just have to do with price of or quantity of a good, whereas it's an outward shift of a production possibilities curve, which actually displays that the economy is growing. In question 2, we have if the demand for tennis rackets increases, what prediction can be made regarding tennis balls? So, tennis rackets and tennis balls are complementary goods, so you cannot use one without the other. Therefore, since the price of the tennis rackets is increasing, the price of tennis balls would also be increasing. So you could say the price and quantity supply of tennis balls will increase. So the quantity supply means that you're shifting upward on the supply curve, but it's the supply which is staying constant, but the demand is increasing. So you see that the second point has a higher quantity than the original point and a higher price than the original point. So question 3, we have a country is said to have a comparative advantage over another country when. So this is just the definition of comparative advantage, and that is it can produce a good at a lower opportunity cost than another country. So again, understanding comparative advantage is to understand opportunity cost, and if a producer can make a good at a lower opportunity cost than all other producers, it said that it has a comparative advantage in that good. So in question 4 we have, according to the law of supply, and so according to the law of supply, as the price of a good or service increases, the quantity supplied will increase. So this just represents an upward, like shifting, upward shift. Well, it's not a shift of a curve, it's just moving upward on the supply curve. As you move from one point here to a point up here, you have higher quantity and price of a good. And again, the law of supply represents the willingness of producers to produce goods at all price levels. So the law of supply shows a direct relationship between price and quantity of goods supplied. Therefore, if the price of a good increases, producers are more willing to produce and increase quantity of goods. So in question 5, we have it is beneficial for two countries to trade only when there is, and it's a comparative advantage in production between two countries. So trade will exist between two countries if there is a comparative advantage between the two countries, which means that one can produce one good more efficiently, the other country can produce another good more efficiently in terms of the other goods that they can make, so they can both beneficially trade with one another. So question 6, actually back in question 5 I want to go over why some of these other ones are incorrect. So a mutually beneficial trade agreement, while it'd be certainly good for both countries, the question though is asking when it is truly beneficial for two countries to trade with each other, while that's more of a political necessity just to have trade. So choice B, increasing returns to scale, is incorrect because it refers to a decrease in production costs. Well, it's pretty much increase and decreasing returns to scale have to do with production costs, and that's not relevant to the question. And in choice D, an absolute advantage doesn't really matter because it's a comparative advantage that looks at opportunity costs, which is important here. So question 6, the production possibilities curve will show a straight line if which of the following is true, and that's if opportunity cost is constant. So if the production possibilities frontier has a constant slope as seen on the right hand side here, then any point it's the same slope, and the slope represents good y in terms of x, for example. So it's a constant opportunity cost, whereas if a production possibilities frontier was boat shaped, then here it's much more costly to produce an extra good of y because you give up so much x, whereas here it's the other way around. So in question 7, suppose it is necessary for tin to be used in the production of guitar strings. If the price of tin decreases and all other variables are constant, what will most likely result? So if the price of tin decreases and tin is used in the production of guitar strings, so that would mean that it's now cheaper for producers to make guitar strings. So that would mean the supply of guitar strings will increase because tin is a factor of production again, used in the production of guitar strings, and firms will produce more guitar strings if the costs related to the production of a product decrease. If the price of tin decreases, then producers are willing and able to produce more due to a decrease in a factor of production, and that factor of production again is tin. Within the market system, prices are determined by, so this is just the law of supply and demand here. So the other ones are just definitions, or a central planning committee is more of a type of political philosophy almost for socialism, which isn't relevant here. And again, the Federal Reserve also wouldn't be related here because it's just simply not related. Question 9 is, if the demand for bowling balls increases, what could be said regarding bowling shoes? So this one I'd want to let's see, okay, no graph. If the demand for bowling balls increases, what could be said regarding bowling shoes? So since for complements, the demand for bowling shoes will also increase. If a good shows an increase in demand, then all of its complements will show an increase in demand as well. This is because if the demand for bowling balls increases, more people are bowling, therefore more people will also be needing bowling shoes. So question 10, the term ceteris paribus means, and it just means other things equal or all else equal. And it's just an economics term which comes from the Latin. So in economics, the term again is just used to describe the effect of a variable. The effect a variable might have on other economic factors when you're holding all other variables constant. So in question 11, both of the economies of fictitious nations R and T have the same production possibilities curve. They both are operating at the same point on the curve. If T discovers a new resource for production, the most likely result of a production possibilities curve would be. So this is a tricky one, but since country T is the one discovering a new resource, so it would be country T's production possibilities, which is getting more efficient. So the answer would just be A. T's curve would shift to the right, whereas R's would stay the same. And that just has to do with a country improves its PPF if it has like more entrepreneurial ability, more technology, more education, more human capital, or in this case, more resources for production. So question 12 asks, a hurricane destroys a significant supply of bananas in 2011. As a result, the price of bananas increases. What prediction may be made regarding the supply of apples, a substitute good, when its market is in equilibrium? So apples are a substitute with bananas. So since there's less supply of bananas, more people are going to be buying apples. So it's safe to say that the quantity supplied will increase for apples in response to the increase in demand. So while supply is not increasing, the quantity supplied would increase because a shift in the demand curve represents an increase in quantity supplied since we're moving from this point to this point. And again, there'd be more quantity supplied of apples because now people can charge higher prices. So, question 13 through 15 have to do with production possibilities frontier. So, based on the table that shows output per hour worked, trade between the United States and Mexico will occur as long as the relative price of shoes is between. So, trade between two countries works when the opportunity costs for the goods are between one another. So, since it's relative price of shoes, we'd be looking at the opportunity cost of computers. So for the United States, 3 divided by 6 would be 1/2, and for Mexico, 1 divided by 3 is 1/3. So we can see that um, they can beneficially trade as long as they trade 1/2 computers, or between 1/2 and 1/3 of a computer for each shoe, and then they'd be beneficially trading. So question 14 asks, based on the table that shows output per hour worked, the opportunity cost of a pair of shoes in the United States is, so we answered this in the previous question, the opportunity cost. So how much does a pair of shoes cost for the United States in terms of computers? And that's just 3 divided by 6, so it'd be 1/2 a computer. Question 15 is which country or countries has an absolute advantage and a comparative advantage in shoes? So we see that the United States can produce 6 pairs of shoes, while Mexico can only make 3 pairs of shoes. So the United States would have an absolute advantage in making shoes. And then for comparative advantage, you'd be looking at the opportunity costs. So since the United States, it costs 1/2 a computer to make a pair of shoes, but for Mexico, it only costs them 1/3 a computer to make a pair of shoes. And since 1/3 is less than 1/2, Mexico has a comparative advantage when it comes to making shoes, since they can make shoes for a cheaper amount of computers. So the answer would be D. Mexico has a comparative advantage, and the United States has an absolute advantage in shoes. And that's all.